Okay, welcome to chapter 11 of the GPS for the Soul, Beginner's Guide to Tanya. So we're kind of wrapping up this first section of the book, and we're talking about now, we've talked about the Tzaddik, we've talked about the Rasha, the holy righteous one, and the wicked one. We've talked about those. Now, let's go into the Beinoni, which is the intermediary, right? That's the definition. And so in the chapters, in the actual book of Tanya, this is chapters 12 to 17, we talk about the Beinoni. What's the difference? The Beinoni has not vanquished his inner evil like the Tzaddik, but he wins every battle with the animal soul, and he never surrenders. And that's going to be the critical piece between them. That's why he's the Beinoni, he's the intermediary. He's not a Tzaddik, he's not a holy righteous. He hasn't vanquished it. But unlike the Rasha, the wicked, he wins every battle. And one of the greatest parts when we talk about the Beinoni is that he's the one who actually serves God, right? Because for him, it's always a struggle. Every day is a conscientious struggle. So the Beinoni is that in-between person, right? In his heart, with regard to the soul's attributes, he's like a Rasha who still harbors evil, but he never gives in. So the Beinoni versus the Tzaddik, he's called a Beinoni even though he behaves like a Tzaddik. He's doing Torah and he's doing mitzvahs and he's never sinning, so he's behaving like a Tzaddik. Why isn't he a Tzaddik? Because internally, his inside battle, the one that's going on inside his head and inside his heart, that is still an ongoing, constant battle. The Beinoni is serving God because he is constantly in the battle. He has not won. There's no title of winner yet. There's no title of Tzaddik. As far as the Beinoni versus the Rasha, the Beinoni, he wins every battle. Whether it's thought, speech, action, he wins every battle. He's on guard constantly, and he's fighting good fights. Whereas the Rasha, he'll fall in. He'll end up losing some of those battles. You know, whether it's in thought or speed and action or in action, he'll lose some of those. He'll entertain immoral thoughts, even if only in thoughts. What was the president who once said, I think it was Carter, wasn't it, who said...
yeah, he has lusted in his heart.
Right. So thoughts and emotions, can be entertained. That's already a Rasha. That's a wicked one. The Beinoni never entertains those. Right. But they come up. They still come up. The thoughts and the emotions that are immoral, they still come up. The difference is that by the Beinoni, he absolutely refuses to consider those thoughts for a fraction of a second. As soon as he recognizes what's come up, he denies it. He refuses to give it any time or any consideration. He's that much attached to God. He's done the studying, he's done the insight, and he has that relationship with God because he's put in all the time and energy to study and understand godliness and spirituality and what it means to fight the fight and what it means when he loses that fight. And so he's absolutely committed to winning this battle. But he's not tzaddik because this stuff still comes up. It still comes up. And how do you manage those thoughts that come up? They have to be pushed away with both hands. And I think we've talked about that before in another context, but the idea is that he has to change his focus to something else and refuses to consider those thoughts when they come up. So how do you get there? How do you get to be that Beinoni? So we have to learn Torah day and night. is put as much time as we can into learning Torah. We have to put time into learning the mystical side of the Torah, because it says, not only just to do the mitzvahs and do what God says, but there's also a commandment to know the Lord your God. To know him means you have to understand the Hasidic part of it, the deeper part of it, the understanding of the mystical secrets and the emotions, and understand the whole context. That has to happen. And then one has to internalize these thoughts. One of the interesting parts about the yeshiva schedule here in the yeshiva where I am now, but also in all Lubavitch yeshivas around the world, the Thursday night schedule, not every week, but often includes a fabrengen. What is a fabrengen? A fabrengen is a heart-to-heart conversation about how to implement the things we've learned all week. We've learned mystical things, we've learned emotional insights, but how do you implement that? How do you use that? How do you actually make your day different with that information? And that's who the fabrengen is breaking that stuff down into implementation, to find the motivation within the things that we've learned and studied to fight the fight, to stay in the battle, and never to give in to thought, speech, or action. And then the encouragement from others, the encouragement to always to continue to grow. We've had our own fabrengens on Zoom, and we've talked about the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur commitments for the coming year. What are we going to do and how are we going to implement? I'm proud to say I'm on track. For those who are tracking me, I'm on track. But that's the encouragement from each other. Then that's also part of being part of a community that you're invested in and cares about, and will check in on you, see how you're progressing in your commitments and things, to be the type of person that you want to be. Right? That's what. And then Stephen Covey talks about you are the average of the 5 people you hang around with most. So choose them wisely. Right?
Oh boy, am I in trouble?
Family doesn't count. It's okay.
No, I'm not talking family. I'm talking about a Marine. I'm talking about an Air Force guy, and me being Army, and a couple other ne'er-do-wells like that. That's how I hang out with.
Well, you hang out with us too a lot, so that's also good.
This is true.
So it's the animal soul is always going to be, finding means to attack and to exploit our weak spots. It's our responsibility to know our weak spots and then mitigate them. And again, I oftentimes use the idea of my struggle with weight. And so, knowing our weak spots when I'm during the morning, even the afternoon, I'm stronger about my will and resolve. But as I get tired in the evening goes on, and then someone puts out cake. Just the other night, I had resolved, I knew I needed to eat something. I'm working on mindful eating, being aware of how I'm feeling. Do I actually need to eat? I knew I needed to eat something. I was going to have some thing of yogurt, a low calorie Greek yogurt. And then my daughter and her husband sat down with me at the table, and we started talking for the next hour and a half about another topic. All I can tell you is that I didn't eat the yogurt, and the box of cookies by the evening was gone. So
the question is, who introduced the cookies?
There you go.
They were the cookies that were left over from our veterans brunch that someone forgot to make sure I served.
You were supposed to donate those.
I did. My daughter's table, and guess what happened? So knowing our weakness means we also have to know how to work those, how to work on those issues. And so we try. And that's the idea of the Beinoni, is to plan ahead and do what we can to mitigate our weaknesses and strengthen ourselves. This also applies to our dealings with other people in our environment. When others see that we are firmly committed to the way we have chosen, they stop trying to persuade us to change. I had an interesting conversation with a reserve officer today. We went for a good hour walk today. And one of the things we talked about is, as he is becoming more orthodox and more observant of his mitzvahs, he started wearing the yarmulke full time. He's getting a beard waiver and wearing tzitzis. Now he's dealing with Shabbos. He's an officer. He's got to be there for drill. He's got to be leading the group, But the drill area is not in the same area where the barracks are. So, there's a transportation issue and all these other challenges that he's facing with Shabbos. And we're talking about how to get ahead of those things. And one of those things, of course, and you veterans, you all know this, but the bottom line is every time you ask for an accommodation, that kind of takes some points away. You're now considered a weaker link because you're not doing like everybody else is doing, right? One of the ways to deal with that is before you have to ask for far in advance about any accommodations, you find ways to be of greater value. You find ways to contribute that no one else is contributing. You take another course, you do another program, whatever it is you could do to add to your value so that by the time you have to ask for an accommodation, well, that accommodation minimizes you back down to average like everybody else because you've already added to your value, right? So same thing, we have to prepare ourselves for knowing what the challenges are going to be and get ahead of that game. Knowing what our Yetzer Hara is, what our evil inclination is sensitive to, and then get ahead of that curve by doing things to help protect us from those things. Some of the ways, page 98 to 99, talk about some of the ways that we can ingrain this aptitude to be close to God and refusing the animal instinct is, for example, every morning we wake up in the morning, and in that semi-conscious state when we're just waking up and realizing we are awake and we'd like to deny it, in that moment we say, we say we are thankful to God for restoring us to our soul, and we're acknowledging God right up in the front. Now, the question is, we still have impure hands. We still haven't washed our hands like to serve God for the day. But at the same time, we're not mentioning God's name. Is one of those prayers that references God but never uses God's name. So we can already say that even in the state of impurity. But the very next thing we do is that we wash our hands. Washing the hands 3 times, right, left, alternating. We do this with a type of cup, a 2-handled cup, and a basin right next to the bed. So before we can take our feet off on the floor, we're already washing our hands. What's the washing the hands indicative of? The Kohanim, the priestly tribe, in their service to God and on the Temple Mount, in the temple, included the washing of hands and feet before they began their service to God. By washing in the morning before we even get up, we are dedicating the day to serving God. We're washing off the impurity because we are committing that this is going to be a better day than yesterday. This is going to be a day committed to God. So we have Moida Ani, we have washing our hands, we have removing the cat from the table.
Yes.
Cats are people too, you know that. Oh, well.
We do.
She'll tell you.
Then there are 15 morning blessings that we say first thing in the morning. Before we go and do anything else, we have 15 morning blessings. And these morning blessings are things that acknowledge and thank God for our body, for our strength, for our ability to open our eyes, to stand up, to walk, to wear clothes, to protect our feet with shoes. All of these things, we thank God for those things first thing in the morning. And then for those who are males, we put on tefillin, we put on the flag trees to tie this animal to the service of God. We study Chassidus because we want to understand and know God deeper. So we can, but as we get into our prayers, we can know and understand the God that we're talking to. And all of these things help to generate feelings of awe and love for God. And that strengthens our resolve. And the strengthening of our resolve to be able to get through the day, continually reminded, Ein oid milvadei. Ein oid milvadei, there's nothing other than God. And we can keep our minds on that. We walk out the door, we push the mezuzah, we touch the mezuzah. We're wearing tzitzis to remind us north, east, south, west, wherever we're going, God is with us. We say blessings before we eat anything, asking permission to eat from God's bounty. We make a blessing after we've eaten to thank God for sustaining us. So all of these things help to create an environment in which we are more likely to be able to serve God the right way and overcome our own animal instincts. All of these things serve to add light, to take away the darkness. So if we were to conclude and wrap up this idea that the Beinoni, he's like the Rasha because he has an evil inclination still in his heart. However, it's clear beyond any doubt, the Beinoni, that evil is indeed evil, and he doesn't allow himself to be influenced to engage thought, speech, or action in anything that's evil. Prayers, awareness of God's continual presence, these are his constant companions to support him in his goals. If you have a copy of the book in front of you, I want you to flip back now to the table of contents on page 5. Table of contents on page 5. So if we look at the chapters, chapter 1 through chapter 11, we talked about getting an understanding of who we are as a human being, a combination of a godly soul and an animal soul. We start understanding the animal soul as opposed to the godly soul. We start to understand the structure of what this soul is, the 10 spheres or channels, the 3 intellectual channels, the 7 emotional channels. We talk about the garments that the soul reveals itself through thought and speech and through action. We talked about the secret of Tzimtzum. Tzimtzum is that divine, godly, infinite power that is mitzamtzum, is contracted into a physical world, the infinite in the finite. We talked about the animal soul and how it also has all these different attributes, but they are focused on the animal things. We talked about forbidden or permitted, trying to see the world from God's perspective. What's adding to the light to the world and what's not helping. We talked about the constant battle of the Beinoni to continue his thought, speech, and actions to be in a holy way. We talked about the Tzaddik who's already won the battle. He owns the title. We talked about the Rasha who was losing the battle, even if only periodically and only in small things, but he's still a Rasha in that time, in that moment, he's a Rasha. If he does tshuva, then in that moment, we can call him like a tzaddik because he's trying, right? But the Beinoni is the one who's in between those two. He's not a tzaddik where he's earned the title. He still has to struggle, he still has to fight, but he's not a Rasha who gives in sometimes. That's the Beinoni. But now let's step back and see, this section is all about the first gate, which is considered the long way. The long way to serve God is to go through all of this, to understand our makeup and understand the difference between a Rasha and a Tzaddik and a Beinoni, what's the difference between them, and how to fight the fight. That's the long way. That's the big journey, right? There's a shorter way. And that's what we're going to be talking about coming up next in the next few chapters. And in that, we're going to be talking about the inheritance that we have. From a time of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we have inherited certain qualities within us, godly qualities within us, including bitachon, a trust in God that will support us. A better understanding of where is God and why we don't see God. Understanding those things will help us. Then the inner will, that power within us, that godly soul that is absolutely committed. And we'll look at the concept of no choice, because at the end of the day, we have a godly soul and we can't give in. So we're going to talk about those in the upcoming chapters. Then we'll get to the third gate, which is all about the Hasidic approach to joy, which is, how we must be happy, and even spiritual concerns we have to be focused on. How we can, if we get too haughty, there's plenty we can break that haughty soul down and be humble at heart, and the true joy that comes from having a good relationship with God and being able to serve God and to serve God joyfully. So we'll talk about those coming up in the upcoming chapters. And this wraps up the first gate, the longer way in GPS for the soul, how to serve God.